Good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with a severe weather outlook and discussion recorded on April 12th, 2023, recorded on 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to go over today, including a sneaky severe weather setup that is going to be occurring across portions of the southeastern United States over the next 2 days. So it's going to show certain thing. Taking a wide look over portions of the eastern and northern Gulf of Mexico this morning, we have an area of low pressure that is trying to develop out here. This is originating from a broad upper level area of low pressure that is kind of situated around the Gulf of Mexico in Louisiana right now. This upper level low is just casually kind of just drifting around, kind of will be meandering over the next about 2 days while it kind of makes its way into the Gulf and then kind of back over land. And there's a little bit of a surface cyclone that is trying to form down here underneath all of this shower and thunderstorm activity. And this will be gradually moving off generally towards the north and northeast over the next 2 days. But tropical development is not likely, although, again, we'll definitely have an area of low pressure. It will just not be tropical. This is a non-tropical area of low pressure, but we notice that there's already a lot of cloud cover and even some convective activity occurring across portions of Florida, especially South Florida this morning, where some isolated showers and maybe an even isolated rumble of thunder or two is expected down here. And all of this moisture is going to be gradually lifting off towards the north over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, if we look at the overall severe risk for day 2, this is for tomorrow, Thursday, the 13th, we notice that there is a marginal risk for severe storms, generally from Pensacola and near Mobile, through about Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, Atlanta, Macon, Georgia, to near Savannah, Jacksonville, and this does clip the northwestern tip of the Orlando metro, so places up there towards Apopka, up there towards, Maitland, Winter Park, Altamont Springs. Some of those areas are kind of on the edge of that marginal risk, and you get into Marion County, Lake County, under that marginal risk for severe storms for tomorrow. Tornado threat, 2% tornado threat. This means that there's a 2% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given point across this area for tomorrow. Now, there is a mention of this getting upgraded to a slight risk for tomorrow once more of these smaller scale features become more apparent. If we do get a slight risk, I think this is what it's going to look like. I do think that marginal risk is going to be likely extended further south because I do think, and we'll talk about here in a minute, that there is a pretty robust shot at seeing some chance for an isolated severe storm or two, even towards Lake Okeechobee and near Fort Myers, Cape Coral, all the way down the I-95 corridor towards Melbourne and Palm Bay. I think the greatest concentration for severe weather is going to be from about northern Marion County up towards the north and west towards Montgomery, Alabama, south of Macon, Georgia, within that corridor around the Interstate 75 and I-10 corridor. I think that's probably where your best shot for some severe weather is going to be for the day tomorrow. But officially, we have a marginal risk for tomorrow. Now, looking at the overall instability parameters for tomorrow, again, as this area of low pressure is expected to jot off towards the north and east, it's going to be pulling around some very robust moisture from the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico over the southeast U.S. Kind of this entire area is going to be under a very favorable moisture plume tomorrow. And with that, there's going to be some sufficient instability. We're talking here, especially across portions of Florida, instability around about 1,000 to 1250 joules per kilogram. And what this basically represents is that we're going to have a very unstable atmosphere for thunderstorms to develop. And any thunderstorm that does manage to develop, I think, does have a pretty decent shot at going severe, especially the further north you get. Now, instability values, the further north you get towards, let's just say Montgomery, near Macon, Georgia, these are not going to be as high as they will be across South Florida, for instance, with near about 1,500 joules per kilogram at Cape. Irregardless, I still think there's going to be enough instability. Generally speaking, you only need about 750 to about 1,000 to get a decent tornado event, and where you have these areas of low pressure. It's the same way when you're dealing with tropical cyclones, even though this is non-tropical. Areas of low pressure have their own kind of unique wind field, instability. It's a whole bunch of dynamics, and we're not going to get into the science behind it right now. But generally speaking, you don't need a lot of instability with these areas of low pressure to generate some tornadic potential. And so I think we're going to see that definitely be realized going into tomorrow, especially the closer towards this area of low pressure you get within about 100 to 250, about 250 miles of this low, and, towards the coast especially. Now, as far as the lifting goes for tomorrow, again, generally the entire area is going to be under at least modest lifting. We're looking from Mobile, Birmingham, Atlanta, all the way down towards Miami. I think you're going to see some modest lifting, and that's going to be because, again, this area of low pressure and this upper level low. Don't forget there's a broad upper level low in here, and that upper level low is going to induce lifting on this right front side here. So all of this area is going to be under the influence for some type of lifting mechanism for tomorrow to get these thunderstorms going. But I think that moderate lifting is probably going to be, again, pretty close to that area of low pressure within, about 250 miles of that low, wherever it decides to ultimately go. But I think this is probably going to be, again, the best area for numerous thunderstorms to develop out here. We're talking probably on the order of about 70 to 80% chance for thunderstorms tomorrow in this area, and probably about a 40 to 60% chance the further south and east you go into the Florida Peninsula. Now, again, there's going to be a slew of tropical moisture that is going to be moving off towards the north. So everywhere here that you can kind of see highlighted here has the potential to see some very heavy rainfall. This extends from near New Orleans, Jackson, Mississippi, all the way through Atlanta, Savannah, and Miami, just to name a few places. Again, that tropical moisture is going to surge northward during the day today, and we can already see that setting up in the satellite loop. We can already see this tropical moisture that's kind of in here, and there's even more that's going to be tugged around back here as this area of low pressure becomes at least a little bit more established, moves off towards the northeast. That's going to pull around that moisture, and I think that's when we're going to start to see, again, the significant heavy rainfall threat, especially the closer to the coast you get here. Kind of within this area, I think has a shot of seeing some pretty significant rainfall totals as we go throughout the next 24 to 48 hours. So just kind of taking a look here at the NAM 3 kilometer, this is a mesoscale model, kind of gives us some better ideas as to what might happen. We're just looking here at the simulated reflectivity just to kind of give a broad overview of what might happen. Again, this area of low pressure is going to be very diffuse, but you do notice that it starts to consolidate here on the model sometime by late tonight into early tomorrow morning. And you notice that there's not a whole lot of coverage of thunderstorms, in this entire area. Again, not everybody is going to see widespread thunderstorms tomorrow. But we do notice that any of these storms that do going, again, you do get a pretty significant clustering of storms that form here in the Florida Peninsula, a couple up here in Georgia as well. And again, that severe threat is going to be maximized closer to the area of low pressure on that right front side. And that's just with any area of low pressure, not just tropical. This is just any area of low pressure. So again, we'll be watching this here again, just to kind of take a look here at the 24-hour QPF, which is the quantitative precip. You notice that, again, even some areas here in Florida could see over 3 inches of rain, even up towards, Jacksonville, potentially close to Savannah. And again, within that quadrant here in Mississippi and the Florida Panhandle as well, could see some very substantial rain from it. So what are we looking in terms of impacts? Well, central and northern Florida, there's a moderate threat for thunderstorms. And just to clarify here, this is not a representation of the Storm Prediction Center forecasted outlooks. So this does not have any resemblance to there. This is just a generalized scale of threat impacts. So again, thunderstorms for tomorrow. There's a moderate threat for thunderstorms, generally speaking, around 40 to 60% chance of storms across the Florida Peninsula and northern Florida. And then the tornadoes and wind threat, there is some risk for tornadoes and damaging straight line winds tomorrow. Again, those kind of both collate, but there's a chance from about 2 to 5%, within those tornado and wind category respectively, And again, the hail threat seems to be low. I just don't think we're going to see much of a hail threat. Some of the stronger updrafts may produce some small hail, but not really seeing a huge hail threat there for tomorrow. And then into the Florida Panhandle, central Alabama, and southwest Georgia. Again, moderate threat for thunderstorms tomorrow. Generally speaking, though, this is on the higher end, about 70 to 80% coverage. Again, tornadoes and wind, that's going to be a little bit more elevated, so we're calling for an enhanced threat there. Again, generalized enhanced, not SPC enhanced. So generalized enhanced risk, so we're talking about 5 to 15% in terms of tornadoes. We're talking about probably 5% in terms of the wind. We're talking probably about 15%. Again, this is all, kind of within the SPC categories when I'm talking about the percentage. So again, we're talking the threat for tornadoes, threat for damaging winds. I think that's going to be the greatest, again, probably in this area that is going to be off towards kind of this area of low pressure towards Macon, Montgomery, near Pensacola. I think some of these areas have a greater shot of seeing that slight risk introduced for the day tomorrow. So again, just something to kind of monitor. I think we are going to be chasing this event. It seems worthwhile to chase this event, at least get out there and kind of get prepped for the big start of the season, which is going to be ramping up here as we head later into April and into May out in the high plains. And so we will definitely be watching for that. Again, I think chase mode is going to be activated here, but we're going to sit through today and see how the models progress. All right. So that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike O'Malley. I'll be talking to you guys again some more over the next several days.